Welcome to another episode of The Caption Life, a podcast about how comics and pop culture impact life and society, and vice versa. Coming to you from deep in the heart of Texas, I am Kevin.
And from Indianapolis, I am Sean. Before we get started with this episode, please hit that subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on, and follow us on social media under the name @CaptionLife on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit. And you can also find out more information and past episodes on our website at thecaptionlife.com.
All right. Hey, on this podcast before, we've mentioned many times that I have some doomsday prepper tendencies because I have extensive hard copy collection of comics and graphic novels and Blu-rays and DVDs. My Blu-rays and DVDs kind of like, it's one of those things. I always joke about, the power grid failing, but I've got all these backups. But even if the power grid fails, I'd have my kids on a bicycle powering my DVD player.
Right.
I even have some mixed CDs in the garage, but one of the best things about living in our modern society is access to all the great content that we have from all over the world that you can get on the World Wide Web. Mm-hmm. So in addition to the myriad of subscription services that exist for comics, you also have some really great independent creators that release their content online. And today we have one of those very talented creators joining us. Elizabeth Lambert is the owner of Lizzagna Comics LLC and the creator of the comic book UltraViolet. She's 21 and currently lives in Arizona. When she's not working on UltraViolet, she's either acting in commercials or hanging out with her puppies. She's been a huge Marvel lover since she was 14 and is constantly inspired by nature, people, and conversations to become the best version of herself each day. Welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Woo, woo. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I know I came across you the first time. I saw one of your videos on TikTok. I remember seeing your story about UltraViolet, which we'll talk about in this episode here in a little bit. But I just remember thinking we got to get Elizabeth on the show. I think she has a really amazing story and everything. So I'm really excited that you're with us. So
thank you.
Yeah.
It means so much.
Good. So we like to ask this question of all our guests that comes on the show. Since we're all fans and influenced by comics, we want to ask you what got you into comics, both as a fan and as a writer.
So that's a great question. I think we'll dive into the fan aspect first. Okay. It's kind of corny, but being a high school teenager, you're full of hormones and stuff. And the guys that I was attracted to in high school were all over comics. And I was like, that's the way to their heart. People are like, oh, the best way to a man's heart is their stomach. No, it's comics, and it works. So after school, after cheer practice and stuff, my dad worked all the way 30 minutes away from where we lived. So I had to kill time. And there's this comic book store that's probably 5 minutes away from my school, walking distance. And I was like, if I learn enough about this, I can get the right type of guys that I like to like me. And then from there, I just remember walking in and was super overwhelmed. There were so many issues and volumes. And I was like, I know of Spider-Man and I know of the Fantastic Four. And I just looked at the clerk and I was like, where do I start? And it was just, it took off from there. It wasn't I was like, oh, screw guys. This is great. This is all I need. And from there, I fell in love with the cinematics, being an actress. I don't know. It was just super captivating. You have Lord of the Rings and all of the sci-fi stuff, but there's something very powerful about superheroes. And it's the common idea that everybody has, the consensus that we come to, that it just takes you somewhere else for a little bit and pulls you into that world. That really kept me going. So there'd be times where I pack my cheer bag and we're getting ready for a game, and I'm sitting on the bus reading a comic, and the other girls on the bus are like, what are you doing? And I'm they're reading the comic. And
Elizabeth, your life story sounds like if it were made into a movie, it'd be the first biography film that was ever science fiction, because a pretty cheerleader who takes up reading comics to meet boys sounds like make-believe.
Absolutely. I know. And I tell people all the time, they're like, there's no way. And I'm like, you will do some crazy things for people that you are attracted to. So yeah. And then from like the writer's aspect, I wasn't planning on doing this at all. And I think when people see the content that I produce, they're like, oh, like you've been doing this for years. I'm like, no, this is my first year doing this. I just remember sitting there and, I just started professionally acting like a year ago. Things were slowing down. I just started getting into cosplay, and I was just like, why not? Like, why not go for it? Why not make a comic book out of my original character and see where it goes? And I guess I have a knack for it. And honestly, it's just that overwhelming power of being able to create a universe that you have control over that has kept me addicted and wanting to write more for her story. So
very cool.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So let's talk about that story, UltraViolet, which Sean mentioned. We came across the comic from watching a TikTok video of yours, and it's heavily inspired by Spider-Man. Can you tell us a little bit more about your webcomic and what it's about?
Okay. So the original UltraViolet script was written to be in the Marvel universe. I was just like, oh, they're running out of characters. And I was like, if she gets big enough, like it's a great character enough to where it's original in its own place, but also has a spin on something that everybody knows and loves already. But when stuff starts taking off and the brands start recognizing what you're doing, that's kind of how you know you're at the next level. Because nobody on the team was thinking about trademarks or copyright infringement, and it kind of hit us, and we were like, oh, we can get into some trouble for this,
right?
So the original story was inspired by Venom. I love the idea of symbiotes and the type of relationship that they have, that the alien itself has its own personality, but when they combine together, it's almost like a joint fusion of the personalities together. So basically, without spoiling much, because I know the first issue is a great place to start, but the second issue just has all of the meat and potatoes that it's so hard not to spoil. But an alien comes down to Earth, and Jay's in her first semester of college. She's getting everything sorted out. The first issue kind of takes you through what it's like to be in Jay's shoes, being that she does have ADHD. She's just kind of like all over the place in the first issue. And then the alien does come to Earth in a huge solar flare and finds her way to Jay. And that's kind of where we end off in the first issue.
Nice.
So, thank you.
Yeah. It's a really good web comic. I remember going through it, and I really like a lot of the characters and the different portrayals that you have in there, and where the story is going. And one of the things that we really notice is that there's a lot of representation going on with people with, different skin color, different sizes, personalities. Like you mentioned, Jay has ADHD. And so there's a lot of diversity representation in this web comic, which we both enjoyed that part of it, because you don't see that very often nowadays. I mean, you start seeing that now, but I mean, I think this has a lot more diversity than some of the other comics that I have seen or that read through. So, so clearly this was important for you to include. Can you share what your journey was like that influenced you to include that diverse representation in your comic?
Oh yeah. We're pretty open about it, seeing when Marvel did try to add that expansive, diverse universe that they did with the I forgot what they were called, but it was just that group of like
Marvel Voices.
I don't think it was like the one with like the internet gas and like Snowflake and like the different, like, it was just, it never got produced. Like they put it into production. They were all new characters, but it was bad. It was just like forced, and like like the Snowflake thing, they made like a non-binary character with like, like an internet term that people usually use derogatory. And we were just kind of like, oh, like this is this is not what people want. Like, it's not hard to, especially for my artists. I mean, I didn't have to ask them to like, make different shades or, put people with vitiligo in the background.
Right.
It was just like second nature to them. And it was like, if we could take those 2 seconds to, put in that extra work instead of making everybody, the same shade or like the same shape, people, we were like, maybe they'll notice it. If not, that's good on us. And I remember the feedback was just people noticed and they were just like, that's me. That's what I look like.
Right.
And, we wanted to come to a place because people are all about representation these days, but it kind of feels like forced representation sometimes where it's just like the character's whole personality is ADHD or their whole personality is being plus sized and they have no depth like beyond that.
Right.
And we were like, well, if we can just take people who just so happen to be plus size or just so happen to have ADHD or just so happen to come from like a single family household, like, and not shove it down people's throats, people can feel accepted. It's just, we were just like, it's enough. Like there's a very basic way to do it, but also make people feel represented. And that's what we wanted to do.
Right.
As somebody who's married to a beautiful plus size woman with ADHD, that portrayal, like what you think that looks like often isn't really what it looks like. And what you've got going on through your comic, the diversity that you've shown, it really is something to hang your hat on. I think it's pretty rad.
Thank you.
We also saw that for a while that you were hoping that Marvel would pick up your story and use it as part of the Spider-Man universe. That's true? Yes.
So I wish. Okay, so if I tilt this a little bit, you'll see that the very first poster that I made was with like Marvel Comics and like the actual like Venom symbol. And I went to go sell those just for like a cheap buck to put towards the UltraViolet fund. And that was my first taste of a copyright from them. It was on Redbubble. And like a couple days later, I got a notification that was like, blah, 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 the company Disney. And I was like, oh no, my heart's not like
they're coming after you.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, oh, they were like, this is your first warning. Like if you do it again, like repercussions may occur. And I was like, perfect. Okay. So just don't do that again.
Right,
and then, and the one that's right here, that's the second oldest. We've been through so many logo changes already. But it's all good because it's before you get to see her in the actual costume. So we did that one when we were very heavy set on her being a part of the Spider universe. And there was just huge backlash. I mean, it wasn't super negative, but there was just people who were keyboard warriors about it that were like, you know nothing about this industry, like Disney's going to come for your throat and you're going to get sued. And I'm not going to lie, like it upset me because, when you have a certain goal that you're working towards and people kind of shine that light in your face that you didn't think about, you're just kind of like, you're not wrong, but I wish you kind of were wrong so I could just ignore it. But then from there, I mean, we transformed the logo into what it is now, and we kept some elements just in case Disney does come knocking at the door and they're like, hey, like, we do want you to be a part of, like the MCU, but we want you to be a part of the Spider-Verse. And it's like, oh, sick. Then we just go back to that design. Like, it's okay. But even then, we're still kind of back and forth about it. We feel like with the traction that she's got just for being like a year-old comic, we feel like she can get picked up by anyone now, but it's always going to be like the goal at the bottom of my heart to kind of be a part of Marvel.
It says a lot that you've garnered enough I guess presence to be on their radar.
Yeah. It's very nerve-wracking. It keeps me awake at night where it's like,
I bet.
Like that video is up to like, I have something million views now. And it's like, they've had to have seen it. And then I wake up and I'm like, they've had to have seen it. I'm like sweating.
Well, it's like getting a cease and desist. It's like getting a cease and desist letter and looking at it and it's like signed Disney at the bottom and you're like, They know who I am. They know
Exactly.
They know I exist.
So what you're saying is I have a chance.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So you have heard of me.
Right. Exactly. So
Oh,
yeah,
man.
I mean, Marvel is always going to be our end goal, but if Netflix or A24 were to come along and wanted to do something with us, we're not going to say no. I mean, if anything, that's kind of like a win in our eyes, because they had the chance to, but somebody else took that before they could.
Right. Now, with your webcomic, it hasn't really developed yet to show like any sort of resemblance to the Spider-Man universe just yet, right? So you're at a point where if you need to adjust based on what you're saying, like you could do that and it'll still be distinct enough to where it's, not part of it. I mean, obviously there's some influence on it, but it's not, you can make the argument that it's not a violation of copyright or anything at that point. And I think that's really exciting, is that you can, go in a lot of different direction. And I think that way you're not like held back by anything, so I think that's a really cool idea. So.
Thank you. Yeah, it's there, but it's not. And that's what I was so glad the lawyer said, because as soon as somebody mentioned, they're like, count your days, Disney's coming. And I was like, I need legal help.
I know. Well, especially when it's Disney, right? Like,
Yes.
like it's almost like a powerhouse that, if they're coming for you.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I commend you on being so young, but also having like the presence of mind to well, first of the way you talk about these things, like you really do know what you're talking about. But secondly, to have the presence of mind to seek legal help and make sure that the thing that you love and are passionate about is protected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it could be gone in like a moment's notice if I was super reckless about it. Because and that's, I mean, I have to be responsible now. Before I was just kind of like, oh, like we'll see where it goes, but I have a team that, if this takes off, they can live off of this. Like I can live off of this. And that's not the end goal, but it's gotten way too serious now. And people have become way too involved in it now for me to not take it as serious as someone should.
Right. It's our dream too. Like our dream is to have this podcast become so popular that we can quit our day jobs. And it will. Yeah. I hope so.
Our manifestation.
Yeah.
We want to buy houses next door to each other in Orlando, Florida, so that we can record our podcast and go to Disney World. That's all we want.
I love that. That's so sweet.
Kevin already thought about like having not just like houses, but like a compound where we have like each of our families have a house, and then there's like a third building in between where it's like our not just like a podcast studio, but like multimedia, because he and I do a lot of video editing stuff. And
that's so dope.
Yeah, but with a game room,
cool.
Right? Yeah,
and a bed shaped like a Star Wars TIE fighter, and
you guys have the movie room though with the reclining seats.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And again, Kevin's the one that suggested all this. I was like, I did not think of this, but I will definitely do it.
I'll go along with it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not going to say no to that. So yeah. Well, and like I said, because we were talking about like the differences in generation between, the three of us before we started recording, is I think one of the things that gets more difficult now for anybody in today's digital age is that a lot of stuff that you create that's shared out is just so publicly accessible that like when Kevin and I were growing up, it's like people can like draw or do the kinds of things that you're doing. And it'll probably be a lot harder for companies to be aware of that, because we didn't have all this publicly accessible like content creation tools that we have now. And so I feel like, this day and age is just, it's a lot harder. You have to be cognizant more of the trademark stuff and the copyright stuff as well too. So I can only imagine like you being at 21, having to go through all that stuff, just how stressful that has to be, so.
I should have gray hairs already, but I don't, thank God.
All mine fell out just because of all that stuff. Right.
Yeah. You didn't even have these problems and you lost all your hair.
Right. Exactly. So let's change gears a little bit. So we talked about your webcomic, but you also mentioned how you're doing some acting as well too. And you just wrapped up filming a movie, I believe, right? Being directed by Rob Schneider, called Daddy Daughter Trip. Can you tell us a little bit about what the movie is about and when it'll come out? Can you share any of that information here?
Yeah. So I don't know the ETA when it comes out.
Okay.
We're like the last to know, as always. But I'm not complaining. Like, I was in a movie with Rob Schneider. Like, that's the badge I will wear. I just have to get it printed on a T-shirt when I go out places. I'm like, ask me about it. Go ahead.
Do it,
So I don't have to bring it up. But I believe the movie is about. They really didn't tell us anything. They were just kind of like, Rob Schneider is going to be here, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And from here, I think that's a pretty common experience when you're acting, is that you don't know all the details of what the movie's about. You're just kind of given like what you're going to be doing, and that's pretty much it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But there was like a brief synopsis that we were given. I believe like him and his daughter want to go on a road trip, but they can't afford it. So throughout the whole movie, like when they are close to running out of money, he does some wacky jobs. The scene that I'm in, they rented out like one of our food cities, which is like a little local Mexican based like food hub. And there was barely any air conditioning in the back when I got there. None of the trailers were there, and like nothing from production was there. And I was sitting in my car and I was like, okay, I'm like 15 minutes early. Like, so I called the producer. Producer's like, oh yeah, like we're wrapping up a scene, and that usually means it's going to be another hour. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit inside the food city, and we're sitting there, and there's people that I've known from different sets that I've worked on here in Arizona, like the costume and makeup, and it felt good to see familiar faces. But they didn't close down the food city, so they had like half of it blocked out, and like there's cameras and lights, and half of the other people walking in are like, what the heck? So I meet the other extras in the scene. I'm called in to be a cashier. So they picked us based off of our headshots. I submitted like 3 or 4 times for different roles, and they finally like picked me. And I was like, yeah, I look like a cashier. Great.
Awesome.
And I just remember, they asked us to pick out our wardrobe, and I read my email wrong, and I didn't have any shirts like as backup, and I was only wearing a tank top, and they had like this thing that covered it up, so I basically looked like naked. And she was like, oh, okay, gotcha. Well, like let's go get our wardrobe. And there was a Walmart that was like 2 minutes away. It's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go in my car and go get my wardrobe. And it's the fastest I've ever driven in my life. I was just like throwing different shirts in from the Walmart, and I came back, and the costume designer was like, oh, well, you see that trailer? Like, that's our costume. Like, you could have just picked something up from there. And I was like, now I know.
Right.
Did you keep your receipts and take it all back, or had you pulled the tags off already to make it look like you had
the tags off?
Oh,
yeah.
Such is life.
Yeah. Although a lot of times they'll still take it back if it's, seems like it's still in good condition, but
it was still good enough though. Like, I was like, oh, I can just use these when I need them next. Like, I don't have all of my shirts have graphic prints on them. So it's like, I need these. It's okay. So they put us in the scene, and I've never been behind a cash register like that in my life. I've never been like a grocery store cashier. So I'm having the time of my life. Like, I'm just like beep bop boop 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 scanning stuff. The lady next to me in the scene, like, she's putting stuff through, and Rob comes in and is like riding in his cart and like flips over, and like his legs are like flailing, and I'm trying my hardest not to laugh, and I'm like, okay, like, keep it together. And we do it for a couple takes, and the producers come back, and they're like, hey, all we can see is like the tip of your afro in the clip. I was like, oh, so do I get to go home? They're like, no, we want you for another scene. Like, you're here for a reason.
Right.
And I was like, great. So actually, like, blessed enough to be there and actually have an interaction with Rob. He was like walking around set because he's playing actor and he's also doing director at the same time. So he comes up, he's probably like the same height as me.
Right.
And comes up and he's cross-eyed. Like I guess he could just tell that I'm nervous. And he was just like, nice to meet you. I'm Rob Schneider. And I was like, oh my God, like, you're so funny. And he asked for my name and he was like, okay, so what I'm going to do in this scene is I'm going to take these eggs and I'm going to try to throw them in my cart, but I'm going to drop them all and I'm going to break them. So I need you to just like react as if I wasn't Rob Schneider and, you know, go from there, like give the audience like a reaction that they deserve, but we can only do it so many times because, you know, it's actual produce. Like anything that he touched in the store was real. And they just were like, all right, Rob broke the saltine packets again. Like go put those up so we can ring them up, which is so cool. But you know, it was a lot of pressure because now I'm acting after him, and like I have to not laugh. I have to like give him a good reaction, and I have to do it in pretty much one take, so they don't have to clean up the eggs again.
Right.
So I'm sitting there and I'm sweating and I'm just like, oh, I can't, I can't, like, this man is too funny. And I don't know what happened. Like they yelled action. He did his stuff. I walked up and I guess I made like a really funny face. And he was just like, oh my gosh, like, that's perfect. Yeah. Yes. Keep going, look back again. And he yelled cut. And I have never seen somebody, sorry, Dad, whenever you watch this, I've never seen somebody so proud of me before.
Yeah, I was just thinking it'd have been hilarious if he'd have cut the tension like right before the scene and said like, don't worry, Elizabeth, you can do it.
Oh, he was doing that all day long.
Okay, I would expect nothing less.
That's awesome. I love that he can own up to that too, right?
Oh, he was quoting it all day long. He was super nice, like super nice for being out in the AZ heat, like filming all day. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, he came up after and he was like, Elizabeth, right? And I was like, Rob, I just told you my name like 5 minutes ago. like, oh my gosh. He like shook my hand. He was like, that was one of the best one takes I've ever seen. And I was like, oh my God, like,
that's awesome.
Like,
stop it. You're too
so they had me
kind.
watch the scene. I didn't think it was funny, but everybody else around me was laughing. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm an actor.
I'm an actor. And then I guess the icing on the cake was after we were all done, you know, everybody wants a selfie with Rob Schneider. So I was like trying to think of a way that I could get in and like ask him. And after he was done changing, I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to ask for a picture. Like if it comes up and he asks me like, oh, do you want a picture? I'll do it that way. But I like shook his hand. I was like, thank you so much for the notes. Like, you know, that honestly made my day. And he was like, oh no, like you were excellent. Like you were so good. Like I will definitely see you like in another production. And then the other extras were like, oh, let's take a picture. And then I'm not gonna get emotional, but he was like, yeah, like we can all take a picture. And then he turns to me, he's like, but I want a picture with just her. And
oh, that's like, awesome.
Sweet.
Like,
oh my gosh, that's great.
So much.
And where's that framed at in your office there?
Oh, you know, out of all the things that I have it on my Instagram, but I have not put it up yet. But that is a very good idea, and I really need to. I just need to get it printed out on a T-shirt. That's it.
Right. That is awesome. I love. That's a great story. I love
Thank
that.
you.
Guys, so like I'm happy for you. Just like God, that's got to be like that's like in the world of Hollywood. That's like a small thing, but that's like a huge thing for somebody who's never even like dreamed of going that direction. Right. Like that's awesome. I love that.
He just kept going like, Elizabeth, right? And I was like, he's trying to remember my name for the next movie. Like, yes, Rob. Yes, please.
I hope that that's just the tip of the iceberg in your like Hollywood experience. I hope that you one day get to thank Rob Schneider for giving you your big break at your like Golden Globes acceptance speech or something.
For sure. Like on Jimmy Kimmel or something, they like pull it up behind the screen.
Yeah, like there's a selfie of you and Rob Schneider. Yeah. That would be great.
Now, is that a speaking role, or did you not speak in that scene?
So I was kind of jealous. I'm not going to lie, because once you get a speaking role, you number one, your pay goes up, but number two, you become like affiliated in SAG, and that's kind of like where I wanted to be. And one of the girls got to do that. And I was like, oh, darn, like, come on.
Right.
But no, I guess my face said it all. I didn't need to say anything. And I mean, it's literally like,
I wouldn't have been having that, Elizabeth. Every take, my reaction would have been like, holy crap. Like I would have said something.
And I was just like,
Nikes.
oh, like you guys don't want me to say anything or like make any noises? They're like, no, sell it with your face. And I was like, okay, but they're keeping it in the movie, and it's a solid, like,
that's awesome. 5
or 6 seconds of just me being on the screen. And
that's great.
Yeah. can't bargain with that. So,
right. Well, and the fact that like he said he's, wants you like in a future production, like I think that's awesome to hear, so
yeah,
you didn't get that speaking role this time, but it sounds like next time you probably will. So that'd be awesome.
With all of them, Chris Rock. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's hope he remembers your name.
Hopefully.
Okay. So, well, man, that's a great story. I've lost track of where my notes were at because
it feels like a fairy tale every time I tell it.
Oh, honestly, like I listen to you like keep talking about that because just like I'm getting like lost in this story. It's just like this is amazing. Like I'm just so happy for you. It's like a dream come true. It's not even my dream. It didn't happen to me, right?
Right.
You've mentioned being in commercials and stuff before. Have you had what are some of the other kinds of experiences that you've had, or is there anything on YouTube that we can find like, oh, there's Elizabeth?
There's actually quite a lot going on. My first ever commercial that I booked was for Shamrock Farms. They're like rockin' protein stuff. I was a cow trainer. I love cows. So it was just like super, like the timing was perfect. I mean, cows are my favorite animal. Like I got to work on set, like on the farm at Shamrock Farms with literally like hundreds of cows. And it was like a 4-hour drive. I was super hyped the whole time and got there, and I've never seen a real cow until then. And I was like, oh, you guys are a lot bigger than what I thought. Like, so it was just 8 straight hours of pretending to train cows and different dialogue and stepping in cow poop and listening to cows poop and them trying to eat the boom microphones and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
They're cute. But yeah, they are crazy. And then I did Visit Phoenix, which is like the tourist little ads that they do. That one's not out yet, but the Rockin' Protein one has been out for a while. I think it's on their Instagram.
I'm definitely going to go check that out.
Yeah.
As everybody who is listening to this podcast should do too.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you. Yes. And then go ahead.
No, you finish.
Oh, sorry. I'm like going on a tangent.
No. We love rabbit holes on this show.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We do it all the time.
And then I think the last thing that I had, I've just been so mixed up in like auditions and like getting it and then like not getting it and then going. And the very last one that I did was for Kretschmar Deli, the meat company. They had us in like up north in Arizona, like in the mountains, hiking. I have asthma, but I was like, I didn't bring my inhaler, which is the dumbest thing ever. And I was on set and I was asking my like castmates, and I was like, hey guys, it's a little hard to breathe up here for everyone else. Like, or is it just me? And they're like, no, it's a little hard to breathe. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I can play it off. I'm like, it's all right. But they had us like walking and eating meats and then like making sandwiches. And they're like, yeah, Elizabeth, more mayonnaise. And I'm like, this sandwich is just all mayonnaise and like one slab of meat. Like, they're like, take a big bite. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I guess one of my like coworkers who was facing the back like points to my sandwich and there was a huge ant on it. And they're like, another big bite, Elizabeth. And I was like, just like smiling and eating the sandwich.
Well, I can tell you, man, you're so young and you have like all these great stories already. Like I just, it's so crazy that things like this happen so fast. But I can tell you from your story about hiking in the mountains and having asthma and being an actress and having to pretend having to act like you don't, right?
Yep.
You could definitely play a teacher now, because I can tell you from experience that we have to pretend that we're okay when we're not every single day.
Oh God. Oh, I salute you guys, because that's an everyday occurrence. You guys have to play teacher simulator all day long.
This is fine. Everything is on fire. This is fine.
Yeah.
We're okay.
Nothing to see here.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Pretending like you totally understood what somebody said, but they definitely are speaking gibberish. You have no idea what meme they're talking about. You're like, oh,
right.
okay.
Yeah.
But you could play like a guidance counselor and be like, listen, Becky, when I was your age, I started reading comic books to be able to talk to boys. And she's like, get out of here. You did not.
Exactly.
That's not, you made that up. So we want to play a little bit of a game with you, since UltraViolet is, started out kind of being set in the Spider-Verse. We thought we'd play a little game called The Spider's Right. And it's a play on The Price is Right. You're going to be playing against Sean. He hasn't seen any of these questions, but I'm going to ask you a trivia question with a numerical answer, and the person that gets the closest to the answer without going over, because those are the rules, gets the point. So I think I have 9, so we can see who comes out on top. But because it's The Spider's Right, I have to say, Elizabeth Lambert, come on down.
I wish I was
just going to pretend you were already there. Okay, so here's the first question. Some of these numbers will be small, some of these numbers will be quite large. I'm just going to throw that out there. It's going to bounce back and forth. Closest to the right number without going over wins. Okay. The first one is a date too, so this might throw a wrench in the whole plan. But what year did Spider-Man make his comic debut?
Oh, no.
No Googling. Elizabeth, we'll let you go first on this one, and we'll alternate back and forth. Sean will go first on the next one.
Right.
It's either in the 50s or 60s. I want to say it's 1959. Okay.
1959 is Elizabeth's answer. Sean?
Right. Well, I'm going to say this.
Sean is wearing Spider-Man pajamas.
I know.
So let's see if he knows the answer.
I will say I'm not how do I want to say this? I'm a fan of Spider-Man.
But you're not an aficionado?
Right, exactly. I enjoy the stuff, but he's not my go-to character that I read from Marvel, right? But I will say 1960, because I know he came out in the 60s. I just can't remember exactly what year.
So you're going to overbid her by one number? 1960.
Wow.
Sean is ruthless at The Spider's Right. The correct answer is 1962. So the point goes to Sean. That's like the oldest trick in the book, Sean. Right. That's not cool.
Well,
okay.
And to be fair, I'll go first this time, because it does it does
matter.
You kind of have a disadvantage. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay, here we go. Yeah. How many Spider-Man comics did Stan Lee write?
Oh, and how many did he write?
Yeah, how many stories did Stan Lee write? How many issues of Spider-Man did Stan Lee write?
I don't even know. I'll say 37.
All right.
And I just pulled that out of the air, no rhyme or reason.
And Elizabeth, what's your guess?
My mind is telling me 42.
Elizabeth, now would be the time to just outbid Sean by one number again. The answer was 38.
Oh,
yeah. He wrote 38, the first 38 issues of Spider-Man. Yeah, so 38 is the answer. You guys were both really, really close.
Yeah, no kidding.
Sean got extremely lucky.
Yeah. I'll go first again this time, since I got that one. So that's the
okay.
That's the
so
rule.
Sean's got 2. And my intention was not to bring you on here to have Sean pummel you in this game, Elizabeth.
Okay.
I apologize.
Yeah, honestly, I'm just getting lucky on this.
Okay.
Because I really don't know that much about Spider-Man.
The Ultimate Spider-Man was an alternative universe Spider-Man from the early 2000s, mid 2000s, and it ran for several years. I'm sorry, how many issues of Ultimate Spider-Man are there?
37. I know they usually go by 5 or 6. But I feel like it ran for a good number of years, but I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
So I'll say, I'll go a little bit lower this time. I'll say 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
30 issues. Elizabeth, your answer, please.
Dang it. Because I was right there with you. Oh my gosh.
I mean, again, the nice thing is if you think it's more, you just have to say 31. You don't have to get too close to it. So
True.
Be ruthless.
yeah, but you just have to know if it's higher.
You gotta have that killer.
lower.
You gotta have that killer instinct, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Trying to activate my spidey senses, but when it comes to math, they're not here. They don't help me at all. Like taxes, spidey senses are gone. Like they're not there. I want to say, let's go with 25.
The number is
low, but
160.
What? Oh my god!
There's 160 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man.
We're way off.
That caught me off guard too. Yeah.
What? I guess like Ultimate Spider-Man was like pretty good. Like,
yeah, I knew it was good, but I didn't realize it ran so long. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Andrew Garfield. Sorry. Let's start over. Tobey Maguire was the first actor to play Spider-Man in a Marvel movie, and he started playing Spider-Man when he was 25 years old. Okay. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't the oldest actor to play Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield was.
Okay.
How old was Andrew Garfield when The Amazing Spider-Man premiered?
Oh.
How old was Tobey Maguire?
Tobey Maguire was 25 when it started, when his run on Spider-Man started. Tom Holland, I think, is about 25 now. So
right.
Yeah.
All playing teenagers.
Yeah. That's usually.
But if I shave, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm 39. If I shave my beard off, I could play a teenager tomorrow.
I've never looked like a teenager. Even when I was 14, people thought I was old enough to drink. Like I would go to Red Lobster and
can I get some Cheddar Bay biscuits and a Miller Lite?
Well, they had this like drink. Right? They had this drink that I really liked, that they had like a non-alcoholic version, like, but I didn't know that, and so I ordered that drink, and she was like, "Oh, do you want like tequila in it or whatever?" And I was like, "I'm 14. Can you do that?" So, anyways,
listen, 2 weeks ago, I went to the store to take there's a liquor store right here next to where my neighborhood is. I went to get ice, and I walked in and they're like, "Hey, I know you're just buying ice, but I have to ask, like, can I see your ID because you don't look 21?" And I was like,
"Oh my god!"
I was like, "Oh, thanks." It was my 39th birthday, and I was like, "Hey, I'm 39," and he was like, "Oh wow, get out of here!" And I was like, "I could have proved it to you without the ID because I'm wearing New Balance tennis shoes and I drive a minivan."
Oh my god, that's the cake right there. That's the cake right there.
All right, back to Andrew Garfield. How old was Andrew Garfield when he played Spider-Man?
I'm going to say 29.
I'm going to say 27.
The answer is 29.
Oh my God.
Sean
knows is like never going to come back on this show because she's like, you guys just kick my ass on this and no mercy.
As long as I get one, it's all right. It's okay.
We will keep asking until you get one.
I purposely like created this document in a folder other than our shared folder so Sean wouldn't have access to the answers.
Yeah.
And I feel like he can see my screen.
Not at all.
Okay. Here's the next one. Mm-hmm. What issue of The Amazing Spider-Man did Gwen Stacy die in? And I'll give you a hint. There were 800 issues of The Amazing Spider-Man. So it's somewhere between 1 and 800.
That's a great hint. I'm going to say 103.
I'm going to say 482.
The correct answer is 121.
Oh my gosh.
John!
121.
I figured it would happen like later, but I'm thinking like later, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh
I am so sorry. Like this is the luckiest I've ever been like in a game.
No, it's good. Hey, it's not maybe informational as I wanted it to be, but at least it's going to be funny.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So Sean and I, we both grew up with the early morning, the X-Men, the animated series cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We loved that. Not too long after that, Fox Saturday morning cartoons also had a Spider-Man TV show. What year did the Spider-Man cartoon premiere on Fox Saturday morning cartoons?
1990.
I'm thinking like 1972.
The one that I'm referring to started in 1994.
You know what?
Now what? You know what? No, hold on.
Leaving.
Let me.
I'm thinking about like the pointing Spider-Man, like the
Spider-Man
like
and his
old
amazing
Spider-Man.
friends. Spider-Man and his amazing friends premiered in 1981 and ran to 1983. We're going to go ahead and give that one to Elizabeth because Sean would have outbid because of the confusion. How about that?
I'll take that. I'll take it.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay. I got two more. Maybe we can redeem ourselves because UltraViolet is about a symbiote. Okay.
Okay.
What issue was the first appearance of Venom? Remember, 1 to 800.
Let me say this, Elizabeth. Do you want to go first, or you want me to go first? I don't know if you want to change it up to. Yeah, you got the issue back there. You're looking it up.
Oh, I know this. No, Sean, you can go first.
Okay. I'll just stick with 103 again. Like I really don't know. I feel like he came in a little bit later, but I don't know how much later. You know, I'll be honest, because I've read Spider-Man comics, but I never really read one with Venom in it, and so that's the one area of Spider-Man world that I'm not too familiar with, and so I have no idea like how early he came into the scene.
No,
so I'll just go with 103.
Okay, because it has to be earlier because a lot of the Venom designs that are in this book are like old, like.
Remember that you are very young, though.
I know.
So what is old to you may not be as old as you think it is.
Like the old classic design, like the very early stages of comics.
The comics where every sentence ended with an exclamation point.
Yes.
Yeah.
The ones where like you really could not get those wet because if you did, then you are SOL. Like your comics ruined.
Right.
I want to say 82.
Venom first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man number 300.
Oh my gosh. Dang.
Liz.
You know what? My next answer is just going to be 1, so that way, Liz.
Okay. You be careful now.
Well, here's this one is going to be the biggest. This is going to be the biggest number. So like you $1, like maybe she overbids and maybe $1 wins it. So like let's.
Okay.
All right. Here's the deal. Last one. What is the box office total? The world box office total for the first Spider-Man film released in 2002. Which is still unfair because
total
Liz was 3.
Oh my gosh, that kind of made me feel old now. Because I was in high school when that came out.
Of it, unfortunately.
I was already in college, so
I will say 100 million.
I feel like that's too high. But then again, I want to say like
it's more.
No, it's
Sorry, there's some allergens in this room.
Oh, I have allergies too. Okay.
They can't be in the same room. This is a Zoom call.
Let's shoot for. Well, shit. We'll do 150 million.
The correct answer is 825 million.
What?
That was the World Box Office total.
No.
Oh, yeah. This is an extremely popular film.
Oh, my gosh.
So congratulations to you, Liz.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
The
I'll
eighth
take
time
it.
is a charm.
Oh.
Okay. Before we let you go, Liz, we want to say thank you for coming on and sharing with your journey with UltraViolet and your experience as an actress. Can you let our listeners know where we can find your work, you and your work online?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want the digital copy, it's completely free on Webtoon. If you just type in, I believe, UltraViolet into Webtoon, because of our fan base exploding like it is, it should be the first thing that pops up, which is pretty cool. If you do want physical copies, we do sell them in our store, which is Big Cartel UltraViolet Universe. And they're always there. And that's pretty much where you can find us for now until we venture out. So
any Instagrams or TikToks to drop?
Yeah. So we want to focus mainly on the UltraViolet TikTok, because I think a lot of people don't know that I have a team of 7 behind me. They think that I'm doing it all by myself, but I'm not. I love my team. They're amazing. So our Instagram is the UltraViolet Universe, and our TikTok is the UltraViolet Universe. And our Twitter is the UV Universe, because there's not enough characters on Twitter for the full name. So.
Interesting.
Twitter's always trying to shortchange you on their characters.
Yeah,
Yes,
and we'll put those.
absolutely.
We'll put links to those in the show notes as well too. So
Perfect.
And thank you again for coming on. This was a lot of fun. I'm sorry that you didn't do better on the game.
I usually
Next time I
bomb
come
games,
around.
Liz. Yeah,
It's okay. It's okay. I had to make you look good.
We'll have
That's what
something.
I'm here to do.
We'll have something better the next time we get a chance to have you on. Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's going to wrap up another episode of The Caption Life. We hope you enjoyed listening. Don't forget to smash that subscribe button on whatever major podcast platform you listen to us on. And you can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Caption Life. And if you like what we're doing, give us a shout out, tag us in a post. For more info about us and all of our previous episodes, please visit us on thecaptionlife.com. Until next time, go to Webtoons and check out UltraViolet.
do it. Yes.
You can do it.
You can.